It doesn't have to be super, super hard for you to be successful. You can be successful by...
So the big question is, what are the top agents doing to absolutely crush it in real estate, grow their teams, and add more transactions year over year while so many struggle? If you ever thought about this, you're not alone. No one has been able to get the answers until now.
We spent the last few years helping agents sell billions in real estate, rubbing shoulders with top producers, which got us thinking, how can we expose more people to these insights to help raise the standard in the whole real estate industry? We then realized that we could help bridge the gap by getting the secrets from the best of the best so that you can succeed. My name is Andrew Dunn.
And my name is Peter Michael. Welcome to Elite Agent Secrets.
And welcome to this episode of Elite Agent Secrets. Today we've got Kiran with us. She spent over 6 years in real estate, ran a team, and has now subsequently helped hundreds of agents with marketing systems, building brands completely from scratch. Something cool that I personally just love. She speaks 5 languages, which I think is pretty fucking dope, if I'm honest. And she's now born in England, but now has spent the last 10 years in Canada helping these businesses scale. This is a truly global enterprise these days. And Kiran, we can't wait for you to unpack how you're going to help agents reprogram their brain, create more content that works, and help them with creating systems that scale their business. Thanks for jumping on with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I'm really excited to have a conversation about all of these topics because it's what I do every single day. So
honestly, like the moment he said 5 languages, I was like, shit, I only speak 2. I feel like that's not even worth mentioning.
It's like a sit back down moment, isn't it? It's like 2, I'm pretty sick in this thing called life. And it's like, well, I'm half a 1. I'm not sure even a full 1.
When it comes to 5, which 5 do you actually speak?
Well, so German, because a quick correction here, I was actually born in Austria, which a lot of people find really weird. So German's actually my first language. And then we moved to the UK and then I moved to Canada. So I've lived in different countries as well, which is how I picked up a lot of these languages. So 2 Indian languages, I speak some Spanish, German, and then English, obviously, as well. So, yeah.
I speak like the most not useful language at all, which is Polish. Like, English is my second language. I used to live in Germany for a short period, but ask me to speak anything.
German's a tough language.
It's a tough language, yeah.
It's a tough language to learn because I used to teach. So before I got into real estate, I would teach, secondary, which is high school kids, which traumatized me for life, but also prepared me to teach real estate agents and have a really thick skin.
Which one is harder to teach? Because
honestly,
I have an idea.
Once you've taught teenagers, nothing else compares to that. Like,
okay.
So take us back to, obviously you're in a different place now, which we're going to unpack. But I like to go back to the beginning. So when did you get into real estate? Where were you? Obviously country-wise as well, which I think is important. And how did that go for you? You obviously said you had a team and you were doing it for, 6 years. So, were you successful? Let's just kind of get a bit better understanding of where you came from.
Yeah, so completely by accident. There was no planning to it. It was a complete accident how I ended up in real estate. For me, it was just I moved and I needed a job. I was a teacher back in the UK and I needed to work. And my aunt, who's in real estate, was like, why don't you start? And this is now 10 years ago. She's like, why don't you start in my office? They might need front desk, whatever. And that's where I started a decade ago, was at a front desk of a real estate office that had 200 plus agents. But I didn't stay at front desk, I think, for more than like a couple months because they started to realize that I could offer a lot more in terms of my experience with, business and marketing and like new strategies. And for me, what I saw was just a massive opportunity to break into an industry and make a difference because I felt like it was a very monotonous industry at the time. No one was really being creative with their approaches and marketing or anything. And most real estate agents, I feel like they just look at other real estate agents and try to mimic what other people are doing. They never look outside the box to be like, how can I be different? And 90% of agents aren't doing things in my opinion, that, as well as they could be doing them. So I just saw a massive opportunity and I was like, okay, this is really exciting. And the rest is history.
So I want to kind of unpack a little bit more because I know it's a quick story, but obviously you started front desk and then you became an agent. So we're in Canada right now. Yes. Toronto. So what was you like? I know you said you got into the front desk, and how did that work out for you? Was your first year terrible, second year good, and then growing a team you touched on? I'd love to just understand a bit more about how you found your success in real estate. It's going to give people a good idea of,
Absolutely. So front desk was just a very brief thing. And then they moved me into operations, marketing, trying to grow the business from a brokerage standpoint. But then agents in the brokerage started to realize, okay, there's this girl, she is good at this marketing thing, so let's reach out to her. So I was with, and I started working with a lot of their top producing agents just to give them ideas for creative marketing. And remember, social media is not what it was, wasn't 10 years ago, it's not the same as what it is today. So tapping into it at the time and creating content was still a very novice idea, but we started to explore. And I guess from the beginning, I've had this deep value of always empowering and educating. It's who I am. So I always take that approach with everything that I do, is how can we empower our consumers? How can we educate them? Because we're not really selling anything, right? So that is kind of has been my approach. So while I was at that office, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not making enough money. I need to get my license. I got my license very quickly and got licensed within I think about a year and a half of starting at that brokerage. And then I sold for a little bit, and I sold from a Walmart kiosk. So Walmart's basically like Asda in the UK. It's a grocery store, and there was a kiosk my brokerage had there. And I'm a rookie agent. And nobody wanted to be at that kiosk because it wasn't working for people. And I say working, I don't know if people can see me, but with quotations, because how do you measure if something's working or not? Really, it's everyone has their own interpretations of it. So I closed 7 deals from that kiosk within the first 3 months of being in the business, from absolutely brand new people that were walking out with their grocery bags in February when it snows here, and they just want to get the hell out of the supermarket. And I would, because I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to give up, and I used the platform best as I could. So I sold for a bit there, and then I got recruited by Remax, which is a pretty big, you guys are familiar. So Remax Integra, which is for Ontario Atlantic, I got recruited to be a training specialist for all of the offices for the region. So developing their training curriculum, going to different offices, delivering trainings, hosting sessions and stuff. Did that for a couple of years, went back to sales, ran my team with my previous business partner for about 6 years. And that is really where I had my breakthroughs, because that's where I had the creative freedom to really do the things that I wanted to do. At that point, I've been in the business already for about 3.5 years. So I've seen it from different angles. That went really well. I tried a lot of things. A lot of things didn't work, but a lot of things stuck. It's just persistence. I knew it was going to work. We made it to a top producing team. But throughout the time I was speaking at different conferences and things like that, I kept getting asked to speak and getting invited to events that are real estate related. So then I started my coaching business full time about 3 years ago, because that's just where my passion truly, truly lies. Being a teacher in my previous life, it just
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes sense to me. You obviously grew a team, or not necessarily right away, but very quickly. Most people struggle. There is a certain skill set that comes in tow with growing a team, which is people skills, learning, but also there's this balancing act of servant leadership or not, depending on what type of leader you are and how you choose to lead people. And a lot of people go down, I'm just going to shout at people route, which isn't leadership. It's kind of that's why no one ever lasts. When there is certain traits, and I think teaching. So my dad is actually a teacher, should I say was. He was a teacher for 40 years. And, he was one of the top in the country as well. So one of the top schools, and he was an engineer as well. So that's why I ended up there. And he's you can tell there's a reason he was the head of it all for that. Since he was in his early 20s, he was the head of the complete department that he was in. And he stayed there for 40 years as the head. And it's because he's got certain leadership characteristics, traits and abilities, which transfer to everyday life as well. You don't lose these skill sets. These are life skill sets, and leadership and learning how to train, manage people, which I think schooling really does teach in a big way, because you having to I don't want to use the word control in like a negative way, but with the kids, it's like there's got to be frameworks and control around that. Otherwise it's chaos. And so it doesn't surprise me per se that you found that somewhat of an easier transition, by the sounds of it, at least compared to most agents. That's actually a really big leap, because it's like, I control everything. I do everything. I can rely on myself. And then them letting go is tough. Like then it's like, how can I trust, if it's Peter who runs a team in Boca, how can he trust, if I came over and I'm like selling homes in Boca, it's like, can I trust Andrew to do as good a job for that client as I would? And that's a real leap. And it's also finding those good people. And, I'm sure you experienced some level of, you thought you had a good person and they turned out to be shit.
It wasn't all like easy for me, but I think you've made some really good points here. Number one, leadership skills. When I talk about what skill sets a good agent should have, leadership skills is one of them. Not just for their team, but also for their clients, because essentially you're being hired to be a leader in that position. I don't care if someone's hiring you who has a real estate portfolio that's established, knows what they're doing. They're still looking up at you to be that leader in that through that transaction. But coming back to teams, I think the trust thing is massive. This is something I get faced with quite a bit with the clientele that I have that are looking to build that team, and I'm helping them through that, is that letting go. There's a lot at stake, so I understand, but I feel like the hiring, who we hire based on skill set versus based on their personality, that's really where we need to, that's the first thing that is important to consider. Because skills can be taught. It's not rocket science. I always say this, real estate is not rocket science. It's, if you have the right systems and processes and right training in place for people, you're setting them up for success. I hired and fired somebody when I was selling, thinking it was their fault, but it wasn't. It was my fault for not having set them up properly with what my expectations were, what their tasks were. And, ultimately, if you do that, it's counterproductive because you end up losing more time and energy with the wrong person. So there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, actually. Setting someone up for success is kind of this, quote. And it really is important. I think it's become exponentially more important in the remote world. I think it's somewhat easier in person. The way I think about this is all my initial jobs before I started companies and stuff. The thing they always did was just shadowing. They gave you like a mentor and you shadowed, and you were essentially handheld for, it could have been a few weeks. And that really did help, and it overcame some of the hurdles. When the thing is with the remote world, it's kind of a bizarre one. I know it's not a very real estate specific with regards, they might not have a remote team. Like me and Peter, we do have a remote team because we're with EXP, and that works because EXP allows us to have a global and remote team, which is obviously why, right now I'm in a different country to Peter, and we've got other people in, for example, in our team in Canada. Right. So that is a very, very modern though, right? That is, we're talking hot off the press. But I think with growing a team, with leadership, it is a crucial part of what people are going to do. And I think what I want to do is actually the first part of your first topic, I kind of, this coincides with, in my opinion, which is like reprogramming your subconscious mind for success, which is just generally about programming your mind to succeed. And I think for everybody listening, whether they've kind of had that come to Jesus moment, quote unquote, where it's like there is certain limiting beliefs in the real estate market that is stopping people having the success. It's not that they aren't capable. They absolutely are. It's that, the one of the huge, Peter, name one of the limiting beliefs that you had heard prior to start selling homes that you're just like, I'm not believing this is bullshit. I mean, I can think of one instantly, which is online leads don't convert.
You literally took that out of my words.
Yeah, online leads don't
convert. We hear it all day, every day. And the first few deals, my first probably handful of deals, half of them were somehow generated online. Yeah. Not through a sphere, not through anything, online.
Yeah, and it's like, it's such a limiting belief. But the problem is that we face is that they haven't necessarily had that negative experience. That has been passed on through the circles that they're kind of in. So they just come into it going, I'm not going to do online lead generation because Stacey on that Facebook group said it doesn't work. You're like, who the fuck is Stacey?
Yeah, who cares about Stacey? But, you've brought up okay, so as far as that is concerned, if we take a step back from that, even like having limiting beliefs, they come from your environment. You have a choice. You have a choice to make, and building a business is not a matter of doing 100 different things, right? It's a matter of doing a few things, doing them on a consistent basis, doing them when you don't see results immediately. And online leads is one of those things. I have clients that I work with, and depending on how their mindset or what mindset they're choosing, I have a client who was able to book calls, conversations, meetings, showings with 20 to 30% of the leads we generated online. Versus a client, he just relentless, just persistent. Now, I have another client who gave up and blamed me for, well, we have 200 leads, why is nothing converted? Because, again, there is that not only limiting belief, but there's a lot to unpack in terms of like that it goes deeper than that. And if we take another step back, it's like, why do we start and stop with doing certain techniques or starting certain prospecting methods? I don't care what it is. Like, it could be online marketing, it could be anything. The reason why I dove so deep into this topic is because I work with a lot of clients, and this is something that was coming up over and over again. Like, they'd be really excited, and that initial excitement is your conscious decision you make. You consciously decide, okay, let's just say Stacey is an optimist and she's like, yo, online leads do work. And I listen to her and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it. Or I go to a conference because I've spoken at so many conferences, attended so many conferences where people walk out super excited with notes, pages and pages of notes that they're going to implement all these different things. And then 2 weeks later, it's like going to the gym or starting a new workout plan. They fall off that bandwagon. And what I teach people is to be aware of that. That awareness, it sets you up to tackle it when that happens. It's understanding why it happens, first of all. It happens because we, through our environment, have picked up subconsciously limiting beliefs and resistance that starts to kick in because we're not used to doing this. For example, if it's calling online leads and generating leads online, Facebook ads, whatever it may be, after about 2-3 weeks, usually is the mark where I start seeing people be a bit like, well, this isn't really working.
Right. 100%.
But if you recognize that ahead of time and know, okay, that resistance is going to come up. That is my subconscious resistance coming up. And my subconscious mind doesn't know right from wrong. It just knows what we usually typically do. And not to feed it. The goal is not to feed that resistance, not to unpack and live there, but to recognize it and give it no energy and persist through it. And the more you do it, the better for you. Because when that resistance pops up, you'll start seeking validation from your environment. All of a sudden, you go to the office, like you said, and someone's having a conversation, they say, they feed that resistance. Or you'll read a blog that feeds that resistance. So what I teach people is to be extremely strict with what they consume, what they read, what they listen to, who they talk to, what conversations they engage with. Because whether or not something's going to work for you is a decision you make.
100%.
And this is really the key because I've been teaching agents strategies and tactics for years. And I can teach them all the strategies and tactics and give them all the tools and list of softwares and whatnot. And ultimately, they're all going to hit that point of resistance.
Yeah, so, I think by the way, I totally 100% agree with this because I know people disagree with me and that's absolutely fine. But I'll give you an example. I don't watch the news ever.
Nor me.
Never. Because for me, it's always negative and it feeds a part of me that I do not ever want to feed. So like I never ever watch the news. You'll never ever see me doing it. And that allows me a weird level of like mental freedom that I'm not kind of, all this shit's going on, or it's like, because it's never good stuff. You never turn on the news and it's like this, this dog had 16 puppies and they're all really happy. Look how cute they all are. I'd be like, sign me up for that shit. It's never that. It's never ever that. Right. So it's like, you do have to be very careful. Now, the thing is with real estate, one of the things that I think is going to come up, like you said, it's, let's say an office. Let's say some people are in the office. I know right now some people are, some people aren't, depends on their situation. And it's like, well, how do you avoid a conversation if they're all sat around you and they're just talking about this stuff? How do you not kind of feed into it? And then I think one of the other things, just for something a little bit more tangible for our listeners, I'd love to kind of hear a bit more about the process, just even something they could do right now, and they could go and do this thing or use this mental framework to avoid these certain pitfalls, so they can kind of go, okay, I'm going to try this after listening.
I think being very consciously aware of, do it bit by bit, do it for 30 days. Start with a 30-day framework, because I think when you break it down into chunks, it makes it more implementable. Because if I say to you, you have to do this as a lifestyle, which eventually, it does become a lifestyle, it becomes overwhelming for people. But if you do it for 30 days, for the first 30 days, just choose to walk away, choose to zone out, choose to tune out. I very politely walk away from conversations that are not serving me. I was at a cottage last weekend with family. They started to complain about things that I don't care to listen to, or because I recognize that these things leave an impression on your subconscious mind. Everything impresses, and it will express whether you like it or not. And it will express in form of a headache or like a thought that you don't want or something. It will come out. So to me, it's just like, I have to protect my mind just as well as I protect, we protect our body. We say, okay, got to go on a diet, this, that, the other, watch it. So clean mental diet, basically. If you can do that for 30 days where you are conscious of the conversations, you really don't have to take part in a conversation. There's no one forcing you to. If there's a conversation happening, oh, I have a phone call, walk away from it. Remove yourself from those situations, and remember that everything you're hearing is filtered through people's own experiences. And what works for one person doesn't work for another person, may work for someone else. So you choose that whatever happens along the journey, you're going to be successful. You make that decision, you stay firm in that decision, and be open to however that comes about. But the more we engage in those negative conversations, I used to wear I don't anymore because I'm very good at it now, but at the beginning I had like a rubber band around my wrist, which I would snap really hard if I started to sit there and wonder about worst case scenarios and what if this happens and that's not working and this lead spoke to me like that. Because we have such a tendency to focus on worst case scenarios. We choose to just not even see all the good things that are happening and the good conversations we're having. So I would snap that rubber band and then flip my thoughts in that moment. And if I can't be all happy and jolly, I'll at least bring myself back to baseline and neutral, because that's always better than being in a negative state of mind. And these things are really, really important, because everyone that you meet that is successful doesn't sit there and engage in negative conversations, doesn't sit there and talk about worst case scenarios, doesn't sit there in victim mentality and complain. Like, it's just not a trait you'll find with people who are at that caliber.
100%. This is totally true. There's something that is actually, I'm just thinking about right now. There is a mutual mentor that me and Peter have. Huge guy, 9-figure per year in revenue in his company, big fish. And he was chatting to, he's like, he is to us billionaires to him, right? Because he's at that level now where he's in conversation with true billionaires, but we're at the stage where we're in contact with people that are doing, incredible amounts of money. And one of the things he was saying about learning from a billionaire is, because he does this, but it was reaffirming to him that it's one of the major mindsets of billionaires. He's like, if they are in a conversation, they're in a room, and someone just starts to talk or a conversation of anything they don't agree with or don't like, right? They will just very politely get up and walk out. And he's like, and he's like, you can go up and ask them. And I think he actually recalled one situation where someone did ask him, and he was like, listen, it's nothing against you. I just don't need that in my life. So I'm just choosing to walk away. And he's like, it's not like I don't, it's not like I don't like you guys. It's like, it's whatever. It's like, I'm just controlling what my inputs are. And I don't want that to be one of them. So like, I'm just going to go take a break type thing. Right. And it's like, if that's a trait of someone that does over $1 billion a year and multiple people that do it, it's like, these are the traits, these are the character traits that if for the people that are listening, that realtors who aren't even at six figures, which every realtor should be doing 6 figures a year, that should be the baseline, that if you're not that, these are character traits, these are the small things that actually make a big difference. Because some people listening, 100% that listen to this are going to go, this bullshit. I know that. Like people are like, what a load of shite, right? And it's like, you don't realize how big of an impact these things have on your life. And it's hard to measure. And it's kind of like what Steve Jobs said, which is like, it's hard to know looking forward. You can only see when you look back. And it's like, you can only see the change of something like this when you look back and go, holy shit, I'm actually a lot happier in my life now. Got way less negativity going on, way less bad mindset stuff going on. And then you're like, why? And you're like, oh, maybe it is because I'm now just indulging that kind of negativity in life and surrounding myself with those people. Listen, everyone has bad days. We all do. And we're not saying you've got to be perfect all the time, but like you can help yourself. And it's such a small thing. So I love that. 30 days, everyone that's listening, no news, in my opinion.
No news. I don't even turn on the news. I don't watch the news. Be mindful of what comes out of your mouth, what goes into your ears, what you're reading, what you're listening to, what your senses are absorbing, and just watch things shift. I wrote a post about this, and I believe in this. We indulge in worst case scenarios. Why do I call it an indulgence? Because there is a certain weird form of comfort associated to indulging in those thoughts. It's actually quite hard at the beginning. There's a little bit of mental work involved in flipping those thoughts and thinking about, oh, well, what could go right, instead of thinking what could, because again, it's that fear, it's that resistance that pops up, and that resistance seeks validation from your environment. Don't allow it, because you can't stop that resistance from popping up, because that's already, a lot of that resistance is not even from the industry. A lot of it is from our childhood. Like if we really think about a lot of the limiting beliefs, one of the biggest ones I find is that money is hard to make, or you have to work really, really hard, or the hustle. I don't subscribe to that, by the way. Personally,
here we go. We can do sit out over this. I'm all game for the hustle mentality, mate.
Yeah.
No, to be fair,
every day I'm hustling.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Just to be frank, I'm joshing with you a little bit, because I do believe you got to work fucking hard. I don't think it's easy, but I also don't subscribe to you have to work 23 hours a day, sleep an hour a day. And then, for me, that is madness. Like
I've burnt out twice, and it's been ugly. And I've burnt out because my mom in the UK used to call me, and at her time, dinner time sometimes, and they're obviously 5 hours ahead, and she'd be like, before bed, she'd call me. She'd be like, I'd be running around, and she'd be like, oh, did you eat today? And some days I'm like, I can't remember. Did I eat today? Yeah, and that is, to me, it's that glorification of the hustle can have a good you can really interpret it how you want to, but to me, it's that just go without really putting consciousness into it. Like to me, so here's how I can maybe describe it a little bit better. When you make a conscious decision that money, it doesn't have to be super, super hard for you to be successful. You can be successful by putting in the right systems, right processes, right, mindset. All of that really helps in getting into like a flow state, which makes it a lot more easier rather than just working hard and working mindlessly by ignoring your body, adding stress to yourself. That's something I absolutely don't want in my life. And going back to what we were talking about, a clean mental diet is the first step towards that, because that is going to already alleviate a lot of that stress from your body, because those negative conversations and everything else that we're consuming, it does sometimes express in form of stress. And some days you'll just feel like crap, and you'll be like, I don't even know why I feel this way, I don't know where it's coming from. So there's a lot suppressed. But yeah, limiting mindset is that it's really, really hard to make money. Working hard is something else. I think when you really align yourself with the goals that you have and that vision for yourself, and you are relentless in that pursuit, I think it feels easier. It feels a lot more effortless. It feels a lot more, the actions flow a lot easier, as opposed to when you're just working without having a bigger picture in mind and things like that. So
I think this is actually going to make a nice caveat. I know it's split into two topics, but I think part of hard work and smart work, which I know everyone's like, don't work hard, work smart. It's actually both, right? Because if you work smart, but then are really, really like lazy and you just don't do even the smart work, like you're still going to be broke. But if you just work hard, I mean, the easiest way for everyone listening is if you don't have a contacts list, for example, you don't use a CRM, you don't even use a Google Sheet. So then when someone is asking you to find someone and call someone, you're looking through contacts, trying to remember, you're calling all these people, being like, oh, sorry, wrong number. It's like, that is just busy work pointlessly, because you're essentially just being stupid about how you're working. And that's the difference in hard work. You're working hard because you're trying to find them, but you're not working smart. You should have had these in a CRM, which I think comes over to the next 2 points, which we'll discuss separately, but they both are, one word describes them both, which is leverage, right? So like hard work would be banging through 500 calls today in a day. Smart work is, why not start using advertising and marketing to basically replicate the 500 calls per day and then use that. And then obviously the other part is obviously systems. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. Now, before you go, we're giving access to a private training we did where we revealed the top 3 niches to get listings today completely for free. So if you want access, you can go and download that training at eliteagentsecrets.com. We're regularly releasing new trainings, guides, and cheat sheets, so make sure to head over to eliteagentsecrets.com and sign up so you don't miss out.